The rain fell in thick sheets, blurring the neon glow of the streetlights and turning the roads into reflective rivers of gold and red. Lena Carter gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles pale beneath her damp fingers. The phone's GPS beeped insistently, guiding her toward a part of the town she had never dared to explore at night. Blackridge Hill. The name alone made her stomach churn. Locals whispered about the mansion perched atop the hill like a dark crown, its gates supposedly impenetrable, its owner rumored to be a man who commanded fear as easily as he commanded loyalty. Some said he was a businessman. Others murmured Mafia. Lena didn't care which it was. All she cared about was the tip. The money could pay for her sister's medicine, her overdue rent, and maybe, just maybe, a night without worry. The driveway twisted like a serpent through the trees. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle in the bushes a warning. Her headlights caught glimpses of stone statues, angels with chipped faces, lions frozen mid-roar. The mansion was larger than she expected, almost impossibly so, with towers that disappeared into the storm clouds above. As she approached the massive iron gates, they creaked open slowly on their own. Lena's heart jumped, her foot hovering over the brake. No one said the gates moved by themselves, did they? She forced herself forward. The tires crunched over wet gravel, echoing through the empty grounds. Her breath fogged the windshield, mingling with the rain streaks. When she finally parked, she took a moment to steady herself. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the strap of the delivery bag over her shoulder. The mansion loomed before her, ominous and silent. The faint glow of amber lights inside suggested warmth and life, but the air carried a chill that made her skin prickle. The front door opened before she could knock. A tall man in a black suit stood there, immaculately dressed, perfectly still, like he had been carved from marble. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp and piercing, as though they could dissect her very soul. "Miss Carter?" he asked. His voice was smooth, cold, yet strangely hypnotic. "Yes," she stammered. "That's me, the delivery." She held out the bag, her hand shaking. He took it with a delicate precision, as though even touching it required a ritual. But instead of closing the door, he tilted his head, listening to something through an earpiece. Lena could feel her pulse hammering in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to leave. But then he spoke almost lazily. "Mr. Romano would like to thank you personally. Please come in." Her breath caught. Her mind raced. Why would anyone insist on thanking a delivery girl personally? But the money, the desperate hope to help her sister, pushed her forward. The interior of the mansion was darker than she expected, lit only by flickering candles that cast long, dancing shadows across the marble floors. Every surface gleamed, expensive, intimidating, untouchable. Portraits of men and women with stern expressions lined the walls, eyes seeming to follow her every move. The scent of leather and cigar smoke lingered faintly, mingling with something sweet. Vanilla, maybe, or blood. Lena couldn't tell. The man led her through a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly. She tried to steady her breathing, tried to convince herself this was just a rich man's eccentricity. But when she heard the door slam behind her and the echo of heavy iron gates locking outside, the rational part of her brain screamed, "You're trapped." A deep voice echoed from the top of a grand staircase. "Leave her. I'll take it from here." Lena looked up. The shadows shifted, and a figure descended slowly. The man was taller than anyone she had ever seen, his presence commanding and dangerous. His gaze locked onto hers, and in that instant, she felt exposed, vulnerable, and strangely captivated. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his tone low and dangerous, yet laced with curiosity. "And yet here you are." Before she could reply, a sudden crash came from somewhere deep within the mansion. A door slammed in the distance, a muffled shout, then silence. Lena's heart raced. She realized she had no idea who she was dealing with, where the exits were, or whether she would see daylight again. And yet a strange, forbidden thrill coursed through her veins. The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the mansion's dark windows. In that fleeting flash, Lena caught a glimpse of something. Luxury and danger intertwined, power and secrecy carved into every corner. She was inside the lair of a man who could destroy her life with a word. And somehow she couldn't look away. Lena's legs felt like lead as she followed the tall man through the mansion. Every step echoed off the marble floors, a rhythmic reminder that she was no longer in control. The storm outside raged, thunder shaking the walls, lightning illuminating the grandeur in violent flashes. Shadows twisted across the walls like living creatures, making her heart skip with every flicker of light. The man didn't speak again. His presence alone was enough, silent, imposing, and unnervingly confident. Lena could feel him studying her, though she avoided his gaze. Every instinct screamed to run, but she forced herself to walk. One step in front of the other. Just follow, just survive, just get the tip and leave. Finally, they reached the grand staircase. Her breath caught. At the top, a figure appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black that seemed to absorb the dim light. His hair was dark, slicked back, and his face sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes, oh, those eyes, that made her freeze. Ice and fire, curiosity and command. "Lena Carter," he said, his voice low and velvet-like, echoing slightly in the cavernous hall. "So, you've made it inside my home." She swallowed, fighting the lump in her throat. "Why, yes. I just delivered the order." He descended slowly, one step at a time, as if savoring every inch of the moment. Each movement was deliberate, controlled. Lena's pulse pounded in her ears, and for a moment she wasn't sure if it was fear or something else entirely. "You realize you could have turned back at any point," he continued, stopping just a few feet from her. "Yet here you are. Curious or desperate?" I needed the job," Lena whispered. Her voice barely carried over the storm. He chuckled softly, a sound that seemed to ripple through the room and make the air heavier. "Everyone has their reasons. Some are noble, some foolish, some dangerous. Yours could belong to all three." Her stomach knotted. Something about the way he spoke, calm and measured, yet threatening, made her tremble. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. Then, unexpectedly, he tilted his head and smiled, just slightly, almost imperceptibly. The kind of smile that hinted at secrets, power, and a hidden warmth that no one else ever saw. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing toward a chair near a grand fireplace. Lena hesitated, then obeyed. Her eyes never left him. The flames flickered across his features, creating shadows that made him look alternately monstrous and divine. For several long moments, silence hung between them. Lena tried to steady her breathing, tried to remind herself she was only a delivery girl. But the air felt charged with something dangerous, something magnetic. Finally, he spoke again, softer this time. "You're not like the others. Most people tremble, lie, or beg when they meet me. But you didn't run. That makes you interesting." Her heart skipped a beat. Interesting. Dangerous words in dangerous hands. A sudden loud crash from the opposite wing of the mansion startled her. The man's expression hardened, and he turned sharply toward the sound, eyes narrowing. "Stay," he ordered without looking back. Lena nodded quickly, unable to do anything else. Her mind raced. What had she gotten herself into? After a tense pause, he turned back to her. His gaze was softer now, almost protective. "I have a question," he said. "And you will answer honestly. Why are you here alone, in the dark, at my mansion? What are you really seeking?" Lena swallowed. The truth, her fear, her desperation, her need to survive, tangled in her throat. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The man leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. "Speak," he said, his voice almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of authority, curiosity, and something else. Something she couldn't name, but felt deep in her chest. Before she could respond, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. The storm's fury outside intensified. Lightning illuminated the room in sudden, violent flashes, revealing glimpses of his face, his eyes, his impossibly calm demeanor in the chaos. And then, just as abruptly, the lights returned. He was gone. The chair she had been sitting on was empty. A shadow moved in the corner of the room. Lena froze, heart racing. Was he testing her? Playing with her? Or had he vanished like a phantom, leaving her trapped and alone in the heart of the mansion? A whisper echoed from behind her. "Do not move." Lena turned slowly, every muscle tensed. And there he was, closer than she had expected, his presence pressing down on her like the weight of the storm itself. "You've made it this far," he said softly, almost like a confession, but now the real test begins. The storm outside had not eased. Rain pounded against the mansion's tall windows, the wind moaning like a restless spirit. Lena's heart still raced from the sudden closeness of him. Mr. Romano, the infamous, untouchable figure of whispered fear in the town. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Yet, even as she tried to imagine escape routes, something else, curiosity, fascination, and an undeniable spark, rooted her to the spot. He circled her slowly, eyes never leaving hers. In the flickering light, his features seemed to shift, now imposing, now almost fragile, like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Lena noticed small details she hadn't before, the slight scar along his jaw, the faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with something warmer, almost like smoke and leather. "You're trembling," he said softly. Not mockingly, not cruelly, just observing. "Fear is natural, but so is courage. You've shown a great deal of both tonight." Lena swallowed hard. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, to say she was not brave, only desperate. But the words caught in her throat, and as she looked at him, she realized he wasn't just a man. He was a force. Dangerous, magnetic, impossible to ignore. He stopped suddenly and extended a hand. Not in threat, not in menace, but an invitation. "Come with me. There's something you need to see." Against every instinct, Lena followed. Her steps were hesitant, almost cautious, as they moved through hallways that seemed endless. Tapestries adorned with intricate, almost unsettling patterns lined the walls. Statues of men and women in frozen poses stared down at them, lifelike, as though guarding secrets of the mansion. They entered a library, a cavernous room with shelves that reached the ceiling, filled with leather-bound books. The air was heavy with the scent of old paper and polished wood. A fire crackled in the massive fireplace, though the storm outside was still roaring, casting dancing shadows across the room. "Most people would never enter this room," he said, closing the door behind them. "They would see it as intimidating. But you don't back down easily." She swallowed, noticing the subtle tension in his body, the way his fingers drummed lightly against the edge of a desk. Something in the room seemed to hum with a secret energy, a silent warning she couldn't yet decipher. "Do you know why I invited you here?" he asked, stepping closer. "Not to harm you, not to frighten you, but to see." "To see what?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "To see if you can survive the truth." Before Lena could respond, he reached for a hidden switch behind a bookshelf. With a soft click, part of the wall swung open, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. The air that rose from below was cooler, heavier, carrying a scent she couldn't quite place, smoke, earth, and something metallic. "You don't have to come down," he said, his hand brushing lightly against her arm. The touch was brief, almost accidental, yet it sent a shiver through her entire body. "But if you want to understand, if you want to know who I really am, you must." Her mind screamed no. Her body wanted to flee. Yet, against every impulse, she stepped forward. Each step down the staircase seemed to pull her deeper into a world she didn't understand. A world of danger, power, and something more. At the bottom, the room opened into a vast chamber. Candles lined the walls, casting a golden glow. On a long table lay stacks of documents, photographs, and ledgers. Lena's eyes widened. This was not just a mansion. This was an empire, carefully maintained, secret, and terrifying. He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. "This is the heart of it," he whispered. "Everything you've heard, every rumor, some of it true, some exaggerated. But all of it revolves around one thing: power and control. And the people who dare to cross me—" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Most never get the chance to see me like this. But you're different. I can sense it. And that is dangerous for you. And for me." Lena's chest tightened. She was terrified. But beneath the fear, a flicker of something else stirred: admiration, fascination, and an impossible curiosity. She wanted to ask questions, to know more, to understand. And yet, part of her feared that understanding might come at a cost she wasn't ready to pay. Suddenly, he reached for a file, sliding it across the table. Lena looked down. Names, places, accounts, every piece of the empire meticulously documented. She realized then that she wasn't just inside a mansion. She was inside the mind of a man who ruled through fear, intelligence, and precision. And as she looked up at him, their eyes met. The storm outside, the shadows, the danger, all of it faded for a moment. In that instant, she saw not just a mafia boss, not just a man of power, but someone intensely human and terrifyingly magnetic. "You can leave," he said softly. "No one would blame you." She wanted to. Her instincts screamed at her. But another part of her wanted to stay, to understand, to see how far this night, this danger, this forbidden connection, would take her. And in that charged, silent moment, Lena realized her life had changed. And there was no going back. The candlelight flickered across Lena's face, highlighting every flicker of fear, every tremor of anticipation. The room smelled of old wood, smoke, and something darker, an unnameable danger that seemed to cling to the very air. She could hear the storm raging outside, the thunder reverberating through the mansion like drums announcing her fate. Mr. Romano stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. His eyes, sharp and piercing, locked onto hers with an intensity that made her pulse hammer painfully in her chest. "You've come far, Lena," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "But curiosity can be a dangerous thing. I need to know, can you handle the truth? Or are you just another foolish girl drawn to danger without understanding it?" Lena's throat tightened. She swallowed hard, trying to find her voice. I want to understand," she whispered, though her words sounded small, almost pathetic, even to her own ears. He studied her, silent, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he gestured toward a side door. "Come with me. The first test begins now." Her stomach nodded. She had no idea what kind of test he meant. But there was no turning back. Not now. Each step she took toward him, down the dark hallway, made her heart race. The mansion seemed to close in around her, the shadows stretching, bending, whispering secrets she couldn't hear. They entered a smaller chamber, dimly lit, with a single chair in the center. Chains, heavy and cold, hung from the ceiling, though there was no immediate threat. Her breath quickened. What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "This," he said, circling her like a predator, "is a room of truth. Many have entered, and few have emerged unchanged. Fear reveals the soul, Lena, and I intend to see yours." Her heart hammered. Fear, yes, but also something else. A strange, thrilling heat that surged through her veins, leaving her skin tingling. She felt both terrified and inexplicably alive. "Sit," he commanded softly. She obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. His eyes never left hers. "You see, Lena," he continued, his voice now softer, almost intimate, "I've built my world on control, on loyalty, on knowing who can survive the dark. Tonight, you are being tested. Not physically. Not yet. Emotionally. Psychologically. Every choice you make here reveals what kind of person you are, what kind of heart you have." Lena swallowed, trying to steady her breathing. Her mind was racing. Am I ready for this? Can I even survive it? He leaned closer, so close that she could feel his breath. I want to know, can you stand fear and not crumble? Can you face uncertainty and remain yourself? Can you look at me and not run? Her pulse thundered in her ears. I'll try, she said, though even she doubted the strength of her words.
He smiled then.
A slow, dangerous smile, hinting at both approval and challenge.
Good.
We begin. He moved around her, circling, never speaking, letting silence become heavy, oppressive. Lena felt eyes on her from every corner, imagined shadows creeping closer, the storm outside pounding in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of candlelight, seemed amplified, making her nerves jump. Then, abruptly, he stopped. Look into my eyes, he commanded. She obeyed. His gaze bore into her, searching, assessing, unyielding. In that moment, she felt stripped bare. Every secret, every fear, every desperate hope laid before him. And for the first time, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to look away. Fear is natural, he said softly, almost a whisper now. But desire is stronger. The pull you feel toward me is as dangerous as it is undeniable. And that, Lena, is the true test. Can you resist it? Or will you surrender to it? Her chest tightened. She wanted to resist. She knew she should. He was a man of power, of danger, of rules she could never hope to understand. And yet, her body betrayed her. Her pulse raced, her skin tingled, and even her mind screamed that she wanted something she couldn't name. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the mansion. Shadows shifted. Lena jumped, and he chuckled softly. Every distraction is a choice, he said. Every reaction is part of the test. Now show me who you truly are. Her mind raced. Every fiber of her being wanted to flee, yet something in her, a strange, dangerous curiosity, kept her rooted. She realized in that instant that this night, this mansion, this man had already changed her. And as the storm raged, as the shadows whispered secrets, and as Mr. Romano's eyes bore into her soul, Lena understood the terrifying truth. She was no longer just a delivery girl. She was a player in a game she barely understood, and the rules were written in desire, danger, and forbidden romance. The chamber felt smaller now, suffocating almost, though it hadn't changed. Lena's pulse hammered in her ears, matching the rhythmic patter of rain against the mansion's tall windows. Each flicker of candlelight cast moving shadows across the walls, and every shadow seemed alive, whispering threats and secrets at the edges of her consciousness. Mr. Romano stood near her, his presence overwhelming. Every movement he made was deliberate, controlled, as if he were aware of her every heartbeat, her every breath. He stepped closer, and Lena felt the air around him thicken, charged with an electric tension that made her skin prickle. You're different from the others, he murmured, his voice low, almost intimate, brushing against her like a soft caress. Most would be shaking, begging, pleading, but you, he paused, studying her face, his gaze intense. You fascinate me. Her stomach tightened. Fascinate? She wanted to protest, to tell him that she wasn't special, that she was just a delivery girl who had stumbled into his dangerous world. But the words wouldn't come. Her voice had left her, leaving only the pounding of her heart, the rush of adrenaline, and a fluttering curiosity she didn't understand. He reached out suddenly, almost imperceptibly, brushing a stray lock of wet hair from her face. Lena froze. The touch was brief, delicate, but it set her entire body alight. It was a forbidden connection, a spark that shouldn't exist in a room filled with danger and fear. You feel that, don't you? He whispered. That pull, the unspoken desire between danger and fascination? Her breath caught. I don't know, she stammered, though the truth burned through her chest like wildfire. He smiled faintly, leaning closer. Don't lie to me. I can sense everything. Your fear, your curiosity, and yes, your desire. The words struck her with an intensity that made her stagger backwards slightly. Her mind screamed at her to flee, to escape, to survive. But her body, it betrayed her. She didn't move. She couldn't move. He was a storm, a force, magnetic and terrifying, and she was caught in its eye. Suddenly, a loud crash came from deeper in the mansion, a sound of shattering glass, of movement, of chaos. Lena jumped, her heart leaping into her throat. Romano's expression hardened, his eyes flashing with a mixture of irritation and calculation. "Stay," he commanded sharply. Lena nodded, unable to do anything else. He turned, moving toward the source of the noise with swift, precise steps. Lena watched, trapped between fear and fascination, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it a test? An intruder? Or a trap? Moments later, he returned, his presence calm again, almost soothing, yet the danger in his eyes hadn't diminished. He stopped just inches from her. "You see, Lena," he said softly, his voice like velvet over steel, "this world is dangerous. Every choice, every step, it matters. And yet, even in the midst of danger, there is something else. Something worth feeling, worth risking." Her pulse quickened. She knew exactly what he meant. Desire, danger, fascination, all intertwined in a way she couldn't resist. She felt herself drawn to him, even as every rational thought screamed to run. He stepped closer again, so close that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. His hand brushed hers, this time longer, deliberate, almost testing. Lena's breath caught. The contact was electric, setting her nerves ablaze. She wanted to pull away, to scream, to flee, but she didn't. Her curiosity, her forbidden fascination, held her in place. "Good," he whispered. "You didn't run.
Most would have.
That makes you stronger. And yet, it makes things more complicated." Her chest tightened. She understood exactly what he meant. Complicated. Dangerous. Forbidden. And yet irresistible. Then, the lights flickered. Shadows danced wildly across the room. A sudden noise, footsteps echoing from above, made her jump. Romano's eyes darkened, sharp and commanding. "Stay close. Nothing in this mansion moves without my knowledge, but tonight, you are learning just how little you truly control." Lena nodded, her mind a whirlwind of fear, desire, and anticipation. She realized then that this night, this encounter, this man had irrevocably changed her. She was no longer just a delivery girl. She was part of a dangerous game, one where every heartbeat, every glance, every forbidden touch mattered. Romano's hand lingered near hers, almost brushing, almost claiming. And in that charged silence, Lena understood the terrifying truth. She was dangerously close to losing herself in him, in the mansion, and in the night that had only just begun. The storm outside roared louder, as if echoing the fire building between them. And in the flickering candlelight, Lena realized, whatever came next, there was no turning back. The storm outside had grown fiercer, hammering against the tall windows like a relentless drum. Inside the mansion, the candlelight flickered and danced across the walls, casting long, wavering shadows. Lena's pulse still raced from the first brush of Romano's hand. Every nerve in her body screamed, warning her to flee, but every part of her was drawn closer, captivated by the dangerous allure of the man before her. Romano moved silently, fluidly, like a predator accustomed to his territory. His dark eyes never left her face, studying every micro-expression, every flicker of fear, curiosity, and forbidden fascination. He circled her slowly, each step deliberate enough to make her skin prickle and her heart ache. "You're beginning to understand," he murmured, voice low and almost hypnotic, "that this world is not like the one you know. Everything here is ruled by secrets, by loyalty, by fear, and sometimes by desire." Lena swallowed hard, her throat dry. I want to understand," she whispered, though the words felt small and inadequate in the shadowed expanse of the mansion. He stopped suddenly, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Desire is dangerous, Lena. And yet, it's the most honest feeling you can have. You can deny it, fight it, but it will always find a way to the surface. Her chest tightened. She knew exactly what he meant. Every glance, every touch, every silent moment between them carried a weight she had never experienced. She was drawn to him in ways she could neither explain nor resist. "Come," he said, turning toward a long corridor lined with portraits of men and women with stern, watchful eyes. "There is something you must see. Something that will test not just your courage, but your heart." Her stomach nodded, but she followed. Each step echoed ominously through the corridor. The portraits seemed to watch her, whispering silent warnings she couldn't quite hear. Every shadow shifted in the candlelight, making her feel both alive and exposed. They reached a massive wooden door. Romano opened it slowly, revealing a hidden study filled with papers, ledgers, and photographs pinned meticulously to the walls. The air smelled of old books, leather, and faint traces of smoke. Lena's eyes widened as she realized the depth of the secrets contained within these walls. "This is the truth," Romano said softly, motioning to the documents. "Every empire has its skeletons. Every man has his shadows. And tonight you're going to see mine." Lena stepped closer, her fingers brushing over the papers, feeling the weight of their significance. Names, dates, connections, evidence of power and danger intertwined. She realized, with a shiver, that Romano's empire was vast, meticulously controlled, and terrifying. He stepped beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. The contact sent a jolt through her body, and she had to fight to steady her breath. "Most people would be overwhelmed by this," he whispered, his voice low and intimate. "But you are curious.
Brave.
Reckless. Fascinating." Lena's pulse raced. I don't know if I'm ready for this," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "You are," he said firmly, placing a hand near hers on the table, almost grazing her fingers. "And you will be, if you trust yourself and me." Her breath caught. The proximity, the touch. The intensity of his gaze, it was intoxicating, terrifying, and impossible to resist. Her mind screamed at her to retreat, but her heart was betraying her, drawing her closer to the danger she knew she should fear. Suddenly, the study door slammed shut behind them, echoing through the room. Lena jumped, startled, and Romano's eyes darkened. "Do not be afraid," he said softly. "This is part of the lesson. Danger is everywhere in this mansion. And yet, even in the midst of danger, there is a place for trust, for connection." He leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You feel it, don't you? The pull between us, the tension, the forbidden attraction. That is real, Lena. And it is powerful." Her cheeks flushed. She could not deny it. The storm outside, the shadows in the room, the intensity of his presence, all of it was overwhelming. She realized, with a shiver that ran down her spine, that she was teetering on the edge of something irreversible. Romano's hand brushed hers again, this time lingering just a fraction longer. "Do you trust me?" he asked, his eyes searching hers, piercing, demanding honesty. Lena swallowed hard. The answer was obvious.
Yes.
And yet, she knew that trust here was dangerous, that every feeling, every choice, came at a cost. But she nodded anyway, because something inside her had already decided. She was no longer just a delivery girl. She was part of his world now. Dangerous, intoxicating, and inescapable. Romano's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile.
"Good.
We begin the next part of your lesson together." The mansion felt alive in a way Lena had never imagined. Every hallway, every shadow, every flickering candle seemed to breathe with secrets. The storm outside raged relentlessly, drumming on the windows like a warning, but inside, a different storm had begun, one of desire, fear, and dangerous curiosity. Romano moved beside her, quiet and commanding. Every step he took resonated with authority, yet his presence carried an almost magnetic intimacy. Lena could feel it, the weight of his gaze, the pull of his aura, and the subtle brush of his fingers as they occasionally passed near hers. It was intoxicating, terrifying, and thrilling all at once. "You understand now," he murmured, voice low, almost a purr, "why this mansion, my world, cannot be approached lightly. Everything here is connected. Every secret, every move, it has a consequence." And yet he paused, letting his eyes linger on hers. "Even with all this danger, some things are worth exploring." Lena's breath caught. "Exploring?" she asked softly, though the word carried a weight she hadn't intended. He smiled faintly, that dangerous, unreadable smile that hinted at power, knowledge, and temptation.
Yes.
Exploring trust, desire,
Fear.
yourself, and us. Her pulse quickened. She wanted to resist, to remind herself of the danger, but something deep within her stirred, a forbidden curiosity, a fascination she couldn't control. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension, each moment charged with potential and peril. Romano led her down a hidden corridor she hadn't noticed before. The walls were lined with mirrors, reflecting their movements in endless repetition. Lena felt disoriented, trapped in a labyrinth of reflections, shadows, and her own racing thoughts. "This corridor shows more than just mirrors," he said softly. "It shows reflection, who you are, who you could become, and who you choose to trust." She followed him cautiously, her fingers brushing against the polished surface of the mirrors. Every reflection seemed to move independently, emphasizing the duality of fear and attraction coursing through her. Then he stopped. They were in front of a large, intricately carved door. Romano's hand hovered over the handle. "Behind this door," he said, voice dropping to a whisper, "lies the heart of the mansion. And it's where you will truly see the man I am, and perhaps the man I could be with you." Lena's stomach tightened. She wanted to turn away, to run, to escape the pull of this dangerous man and his intoxicating world. But she didn't. Her curiosity, her desire, and her unspoken fascination compelled her to stay. Romano opened the door slowly. Inside was a room unlike any other she had seen. Tall windows stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing the storm outside, the flashes of lightning illuminating the vast mansion grounds. Candles lined the walls, their flames dancing in rhythm with the shadows. In the center of the room stood a grand piano, old and polished, and a chair positioned as though someone had been waiting for her. He gestured toward it.
Sit.
"Listen. Watch. Learn. This room holds stories, Lena. Stories of love, loss, power, and danger. And tonight, it will tell you one of its truths." She obeyed, her movements hesitant, heart pounding. Every step felt like crossing a line she couldn't return from. Romano approached the piano, his long fingers gliding over the keys, producing a haunting melody that filled the room with a bittersweet tension. "The piano," he said softly, "is not just an instrument. It's a storyteller. Each note, each pause, reflects the choices we make, the paths we take, and sometimes the desires we cannot deny." Lena listened, mesmerized, feeling the music seep into her bones, stirring emotions she hadn't yet acknowledged. She glanced at him, noting the intensity in his eyes, the way his body moved with grace and power, commanding the room and her attention with effortless dominance. The storm outside seemed distant now. All that existed was the music, the shadows, and the charged presence of Romano beside her. She realized then that she was no longer a passive observer in his world. She was a participant, drawn deeper into a dangerous dance of desire, fear, and curiosity. He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. "Do you feel it, Lena?" he whispered. "The pull? The danger? The thrill? That is what it means to truly enter my world. And now you are part of it." Her body responded before her mind could. Fear, fascination, desire. They collided, leaving her trembling, aware that each moment spent with him brought her closer to a truth she both feared and longed for. Romano's hand brushed hers again, deliberate, lingering. The contact was electric, setting her nerves ablaze. "The night has only begun," he murmured, "and yet already, you are in the eye of the storm." And Lena knew, with a shiver of both terror and anticipation, that there was no turning back.
She was part of his world now.
The mansion, the secrets, the danger, and him. The mansion was silent now, save for the soft echoes of the piano lingering in the corridors. Lena's mind was still reeling from the storm of emotions Romano had ignited, the pull of danger, the thrill of forbidden desire, and the relentless fascination she couldn't escape. Every nerve in her body was alive, every glance at him a test of will. Romano stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, almost magnetic. The candlelight flickered across his sharp features, highlighting the intensity in his eyes. "Lena," he said softly, "tonight you are learning more than just the secrets of this mansion.
You are learning about me.
About who I am and the shadows that follow me." She swallowed hard, her throat tight. I want to know," she whispered, though fear and anticipation battled within her. He smiled faintly, a dangerous curve of his lips that spoke of power, of secrets, and of temptation.
"Good.
"You must know what you are stepping into. The choices you make here will define you, and perhaps thus." He led her down another corridor, narrower this time, walls lined with old photographs. Faces stared out at her, men, women, children, some smiling, some frozen in stern poses, all connected to the empire Romano had built. Her heart raced. Each photo seemed to whisper a story, a memory, a warning. "This is my history," he murmured, brushing a finger across one photograph of a young boy. Lena felt a pang of unease. Every name, every face, the piece of who I am. And yet, some stories are darker than others. She glanced at him, her curiosity piqued despite the fear curling in her stomach. Darker, how? He paused, eyes clouding with a rare vulnerability, before hardening again.
Loss.
Betrayal. Power wielded without mercy. And yet it shaped me. Made me strong. Made me. His gaze swept over her, intense and piercing, unpredictable. Lena's pulse raced. She felt the weight of his words, the danger in his aura, and the forbidden attraction that made her tremble. Her mind screamed at her to resist, to flee, but her body betrayed her. She was drawn to him, to the storm of secrets, and to the intoxicating intensity he radiated. Suddenly, he stopped before a door, taller and more ornate than any she had seen. "Behind this," he said, voice dropping to a whisper, "lies a truth I rarely reveal. But tonight you have earned it. Or perhaps you have been chosen to see it." Her breath caught. She wanted to ask what truth lay behind it, but her curiosity overpowered caution. He opened the door slowly, revealing a room bathed in shadows, the dim light illuminating a desk cluttered with letters, journals, and maps. The air smelled of old parchment and faint smoke. "This," he said, stepping inside, "is where I plan, where I remember, where I make decisions that affect lives, including mine and yours, now." Lena stepped closer, drawn despite the tension coiling in her stomach. Each object, each paper, seemed charged with meaning, history, and danger. She could almost feel the weight of the choices Romano had made, the lives he had influenced, the secrets he had kept hidden. He watched her carefully, his gaze intense. "Most would never see this. Most are not ready. But you are." Her heart pounded. She felt herself teetering on the edge of something irreversible, a connection, a fascination, a danger that thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. Then, from the far corner of the room, a sudden movement caught her eye, a shadow shifting, a whisper of sound. Lena jumped, startled, and Romano's eyes darkened. "You must always be alert here," he said, voice low, dangerous. "In this world, everything can change in an instant. And trust, Trust is a luxury few survive. She nodded, fear and excitement mingling in her chest. But before she could speak, he stepped closer, his hand brushing hers once more, deliberate and teasing. "And yet," he whispered, voice soft, almost intimate, "even in danger, there is desire. Even in fear, there is temptation." Her pulse thundered. She felt herself drawn to him, caught in the impossible tension between caution and surrender. And in that charged moment, a thought pierced her mind, a terrifying, thrilling realization. She wasn't just a visitor in this mansion. She was part of its heart, its secrets, its danger, and part of him. And then, without warning, the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening crash. The candlelight flickered violently, shadows leaping across the walls. Lena spun around, heart racing, and froze. The room was empty. The journals, the letters, all gone. And Romano's voice came from the darkness, low and chilling. "Welcome to the truth, Lena. There is no turning back now." The room was swallowed by shadows, the storm outside a relentless percussion against the mansion's tall windows. Lena's pulse thundered in her chest, each beat echoing in the cavernous space, amplifying her fear and her fascination. Romano's presence loomed close, magnetic and commanding, his gaze piercing her as if reading the unspoken thoughts in her mind. "You are no longer merely a visitor," he murmured, his voice low and deliberate, brushing the edges of her consciousness like a dangerous caress. "You have stepped into my world, and in my world, every choice has consequence." Her breath caught. "What choice?" she whispered, voice barely audible over the rain. "To surrender or to resist," he said, taking a measured step closer, the intensity in his eyes leaving her unable to look away. "To trust or to flee. To step fully into the shadows or cling to the light. The path you take will define you." Lena's stomach twisted. Fear and desire collided in a storm within her. Every instinct screamed to escape, yet her body and heart betrayed her, pulling her closer to the danger she knew she should fear. Romano extended his hand, deliberate and teasing. The brush of his fingers sent a jolt of electricity through her, igniting nerves she didn't know she possessed. "You feel it, don't you?" he whispered. "The pull, the thrill, the forbidden tension that neither of us can deny." Her chest tightened, and her knees threatened to buckle. She knew she was crossing a line, one that once crossed, there would be no return. The mansion, its shadows, the storm, and Romano himself formed a vortex of danger and desire that held her captive. "You are stronger than you know," he continued, his voice softer now, almost intimate. "Yet the real challenge isn't strength, it's surrender. Can you face the truth of what you crave? Can you stand on the edge and not fall? Or will you leap?" Her breath caught again. The pull between them was undeniable, intoxicating and terrifying. Every glance, every subtle movement of his body, every word he whispered wove a web around her senses. She was caught between fear and desire, between self-preservation and forbidden fascination. Romano's hand lingered near hers once more, the touch deliberate, teasing, unrelenting. "Tonight, Lena," he whispered, "you are learning the danger of curiosity and the power of what you cannot resist." The storm outside howled louder, lightning illuminating the room in brief, violent flashes. Lena realized, with a shiver, that she was no longer just observing the world of Romano. She was immersed in it, trapped in its perilous allure, and drawn to him in ways she could neither escape nor deny. And as the shadows danced around them, the tension in the room thickened, signaling that the choices she would make next could change everything, her life, her heart, and her fate forever. The storm had finally reached a crescendo, lightning slicing the sky, thunder rolling like the roar of an angry beast. Inside the mansion, Lena stood at the center of Romano's hidden study, the air between them charged with tension, danger, and desire. Every heartbeat echoed in her chest, a reminder that nothing would ever be the same again. Romano stepped closer, his eyes dark and commanding, yet softened by an almost imperceptible vulnerability. "Lena," he said, voice low and deliberate, "tonight you've seen the truth, my world, my secrets, my dangers. You felt the pull between fear and desire, between trust and surrender. Now the choice is yours." Her chest tightened. "Choice," she whispered, trembling. "To stay," he said, his gaze never leaving hers, "and embrace this world, embrace me. Or leave, and return to the life you knew before tonight. But know this, once you leave, there is no coming back. You will walk away forever." Her mind raced. Every instinct urged her to flee, but her heart, her very soul, was tethered to him. The danger, the mansion, the forbidden attraction, it had already claimed her. She realized she was no longer just a delivery girl. She was part of his empire, part of his world, and part of him. She took a deep breath, stepping closer, her hand trembling as she reached for his. The electricity between them surged, unspoken promises crackling in the charged air. I can't walk away," she whispered. A rare, almost disbelieving smile touched Romano's lips. "Then you understand," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his thumb grazing her cheek. "You belong here with me, in my world, with all its danger, its shadows, and its truths." The tension between them melted into something far more intimate, an undeniable, forbidden connection that neither fear nor logic could deny. The storm outside seemed to bow to the moment, the wind softening, the rain a distant murmur, as if the mansion itself held its breath. Romano drew her closer, their foreheads touching, the world shrinking to nothing but the storm within them. "You've chosen," he whispered, voice a mix of authority and longing. "And now we face everything together." Lena's pulse steadied, fear transforming into exhilaration. She realized she had embraced the darkness, the danger, and the forbidden romance that had drawn her to this world. And for the first time, she felt alive in a way she never had before. The mansion seemed to exhale around them, shadows retreating, secrets held just long enough to witness her choice. In that charged silence, the storm outside faded, leaving only the rhythm of their hearts, beating together, united by trust, desire, and the dangerous thrill of the unknown. And in that moment, Lena knew. Her life had changed forever. She had chosen Romano, chosen the danger, chosen the love that could consume her, and she would never be the same again. Sparkles, if you want to uncover even more dark, forbidden, and thrilling romances like Lena and Romano's story, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss the next story that will grip you from the very first. Second,